The story begins at Hardwick Orphanage. This is where Molly lives, an orphan girl who grows up under the strict and cold rules of the fearsome Mrs. Adderstone. In that place, the children can barely have any fun. In fact, the headmistress doesn't even allow them to read, so at night they have to hide in the laundry room to do it without being discovered. Molly's best friend is Rocky, a cheerful boy who one day interrupts her to invite her to sneak into the kitchen and steal some food. But the noise gives them away, and Adderstone shows up just in time to catch them red-handed. To keep the others from being punished, Molly decides to take all the blame and claims it was her idea. As a result, she is forced to clean the orphanage bathrooms every week. The next day, the cook serves fish soup, something none of the children can stand. While they eat, Molly mentions that there will be a talent show at school and tries to convince Rocky to take part, since he's a very good musician. But at that moment, the headmistress appears, sees the flyer, and without thinking twice, adds another punishment for Molly. Now she will also have to wash the dishes all week. Later, while Molly is doing her chores, Rocky tries to cheer her up by singing her a song. She takes the opportunity to insist on the talent show, but Adderstone overhears everything and reminds them of something quite harsh. The only way to leave that place is by being adopted. And according to her, that is never going to happen. The only person who is truly on Molly's side is Miss Trinkleberry, a worker at the orphanage who always tries to comfort her and lift her spirits. The next morning, the children go out for a walk, but Molly starts falling behind until she ends up wandering off on her own. Along the way, she sees a huge billboard of the famous Davina Neural, and as she looks at it, she confesses that her biggest dream is to become as famous as her. She then enters a library, where Lucy is very happy to see her again. But hours later, a strange man named Nachman appears and asks about a very old book, written in 1908, that talks about hypnotism. Lucy tells him it's not there, but he insists that he has traveled a very long way to find it. Meanwhile, Molly discovers that very same book hidden in a secret place that only she can access. Without thinking, she starts reading it. But when Nachman sees her with the book, he immediately realizes it's exactly what he's been looking for, and begins chasing her. Molly barely manages to escape and runs back to the orphanage, where she hides in the laundry room. She spends the whole afternoon there reading and discovers something incredible. Hypnotism is a very rare gift, something only a few people can do. To check if she has that ability too, she tries to hypnotize herself in front of a mirror. But she is interrupted by Petula, the headmistress's dog. So she decides to try it on him instead, and to her surprise, it works. She manages to hypnotize him, and the animal becomes completely calm and obedient. At dinner time, Molly can't stand eating fish soup anymore, so she decides to use her new power on the cook, and gets her to prepare some delicious spaghetti for everyone. But right in the middle of dinner, Adderstone makes an important announcement. On Saturday, a couple will arrive to adopt one of the older children, and she has decided it will be Rocky, clearly intending to separate him from Molly, although Molly is happy for him at first. Rocky makes it clear that he doesn't want to leave without his best friend, so she promises him that they won't be separated, and that she will find a way to stop it. Later, Miss Trinkleberry confronts the headmistress and reminds her that she had promised Molly and Rocky would be adopted together. She even threatens to report her to the board if she breaks that promise. Meanwhile, several miles away, Nachman receives a call from his mother and reveals his true plan. He wants to rob a bank, but to do that, he needs the hypnotism book that Molly now has, and he already knows where to find her. The next morning, Nachman shows up at the orphanage, determined to get the book back. He is about to head upstairs when Mrs. Adderstone stops him, suspicious of him and worried he might cause trouble. But the man quickly improvises and says he's there to apply for the janitor position, so the headmistress, without thinking much about it, puts him to clean the sewage tank. That same night, when Miss Trinkleberry returns, Adderstone asks for her help to change a light bulb. But it's all a trap. As soon as the woman steps onto a chair, the headmistress pushes her down the stairs. After that, Trinkleberry is taken to the hospital, leaving Adderstone in complete control of the orphanage, with no one to stop her. Hours later, while everyone is asleep, Nachman tries to sneak into Molly's room using a ladder. But the headmistress catches him, and in the middle of the chaos, the man ends up falling. The next morning, Molly decides to test her new abilities, but this time on the most difficult person, Adderstone herself. According to the book, bitter people are more resistant to hypnotism. Even so, Molly tries, and surprisingly, it works. She manages to hypnotize her and orders her to treat all the children at the orphanage kindly from now on. That same Saturday, the school talent show takes place and Rocky is about to perform. But Molly doesn't show up, and the idea of going on stage without her makes him very nervous. Meanwhile, Molly is busy at the orphanage. Using hypnotism to change her friend's fate, she convinces Adderstone to have the interested couple adopt another child instead of Rocky, and also orders her to modify the records so that Molly and Rocky can only be adopted together. Just as she finishes, she hears the clock and remembers the competition. She runs to the school, but arrives too late. Rocky, not seeing her, decides to withdraw from the contest. When he returns to the orphanage, Rocky discovers that the couple is already there and, trying to make a good impression, introduces himself to them in the best way he can. Shortly after, Molly comes back and receives the worst news. Rocky has been chosen and will leave for London with his new family. Confused and heartbroken, she barely has time to say goodbye. Rocky, even though he didn't want to leave like that, feels hurt because he believes Molly abandoned him, so he decides to leave without looking back. Seeing how devastated Molly is, one of her friends advises her to go after him and bring him back before Christmas. At that moment, Nachman is still at the orphanage and sees Molly going through some files in the office. He approaches her and demands that she return the hypnotism book. He tries to stop her, but Molly kicks him in the shin, grabs Rocky's adoption papers, and runs away. Nachman immediately chases after her, but the dog, Petula, attacks him, causing him to have an accident. The dog then runs toward Molly, and she has no choice but to take him with her. When she reaches the city, Molly finds a bus heading to London and uses her powers to convince the driver to let her get on. After a long journey, she arrives in the city, makes some new friends along the way, and ends up at a hotel where she hypnotizes the manager to get the best suite. The next morning, now calmer, she manages to get the address of the family who adopted Rocky and goes to find him. When she rings the doorbell, Mr. Alabaster answers and calls Rocky to the door. When they finally see each other, the two friends hug. Molly tells him that she can now hypnotize people and asks him to come back with her to the orphanage. But Rocky tells her he can't, because this is now his new family. Before leaving, Molly gives him a photo of the hotel where she is staying and asks him to come see her later. That same afternoon, Molly is on the rooftop, looking out over the city with Petula, wondering what to do, now that her best friend doesn't want to come back with her. At that moment, while Molly is in her room, the dog turns on the TV, and Davina Neural appears on a famous show. Molly is completely mesmerized, because she sees in her everything she has always dreamed of becoming. And then she discovers something even better. There will be auditions to choose singers and dancers to accompany Davina in her next musical show. Without thinking twice, she decides to give it a try. But just as she's about to perform, something goes wrong and the auditions get cancelled. Even so, Molly doesn't give up. She sneaks into the studio and goes straight to talk to the producer. Using hypnotism, she manages to convince him to replace Davina. And just like that, in a matter of moments, Molly becomes the new main star. In the following weeks, her life changes completely. Molly begins to live her dream. She becomes famous, takes part in photo shoots, appears on major shows, and is always accompanied by Petula. Thanks to hypnotism, she easily wins over the audience, and soon she has admirers everywhere, even people who travel from far away just to see her. But not everything is as perfect as it seems. When Molly actually tries to perform, Davina starts to grow suspicious. because she realizes the girl doesn't know how to sing or dance. Something is definitely off. Shortly after, Davina goes to her dressing room and confronts her directly. She accuses her of getting the role by cheating, since she has no real talent. Molly gets scared, and to prevent her secret from being exposed, she starts studying how to hypnotize multiple people at once. That's when she discovers she can control groups, but only up to a maximum of 10 people. Meanwhile, back at the orphanage, Jerry manages to contact her and tells her that ever since she left, Mrs. Adderstone has been acting very strange. Now she treats all the children kindly. Then he asks when she's coming back, but Molly, not knowing what to say, simply hangs up. On her way to one of her shows, Molly is greeted by a crowd of excited fans. She steps out of the limousine, signs autographs, and everyone wants to see her up close. But among the crowd, someone recognizes her. It's Nachman's mother, who has been following her career on TV. Without wasting any time, she calls her son and tells him exactly where Molly is. That same night, Rocky attends a dinner with his new parents' friends. Mr. Alabaster asks him to play something to show his talent, but his nerves betray him once again, and he can't do it. Feeling uncomfortable and frustrated, he ends up walking away. Meanwhile, Molly goes on stage and, using a magnifying glass, makes everyone focus on her eyes. In this way, she manages to hypnotize not only the audience in the theater, but also everyone watching the show from their homes. At the same time, Rocky decides to escape from his new life and begins wandering through the city, searching for the hotel where Molly is staying. Back at the theater, Davina enters Molly's dressing room and goes through her things. There, she discovers the truth. Molly is an orphan, and she also finds the hypnotism book. In that moment, she understands everything that is the secret behind her success. Just then, Nachman appears, trying to steal the book, but Davina confronts him and the two start fighting. The noise draws the attention of a security guard, so they both have to hide quickly to avoid being caught. In the middle of the chaos, Nachman ends up falling into a trash container. While trying to get out, he receives a call from his mother, who tells him the plan. Some criminals are going to rob a bank the next morning, and afterward he must use hypnotism to keep all the jewels. But now everything changes. His mother tells him to forget about the book. Instead, he must capture Molly and force her to use her powers to complete the plan. After the show, Molly is surrounded by reporters who can't stop praising her. Everyone says she was incredible and that her family must be very proud of her. But those words hit her hard because at that moment she remembers Rocky and starts to miss her old life, where even though she wasn't famous, she had someone who truly cared about her. Sitting alone on the stage, Molly realizes what she has done. She regrets having deceived everyone. So when she returns to her dressing room, she finds Davina there and understands that her secret has already been discovered. Without hesitation, she apologizes for taking her place. Molly then makes a decision. She no longer wants to be famous. After reconciling with Davina, she realizes it's time to go back home. But just as she's about to leave the hotel, she runs into Rocky again. Together with Petula, the two decide to return to the orphanage to reunite with their friends. Before leaving, Molly tells Rocky how she managed to become famous and shows him the hypnotism book. But at that moment, Nachman appears, uses a tree to distract Petula, and manages to take him. Then he quickly disappears. Shortly after, a hotel employee hands Molly a letter. When they read it, they both understand what's happening. Nachman has kidnapped Petula, and if Molly doesn't go alone to the indicated place, the dog will be in danger. With no other choice, Molly asks Rocky to wait outside and enters the building. But it was all a trap. As soon as she arrives, Nachman captures her and reveals his plan. He wants to use her powers to rob a bank. The next morning, they hide near the place while a group of criminals, led by Craig, carry out the robbery. When they come out with the jewels in an armored truck, Molly steps in front of the vehicle and uses hypnotism to control them. This way, she makes them hand over the truck to Nachman, and the two escape. What they don't know is that Rocky has hidden himself on top of the vehicle and follows them without being noticed. Minutes later, they arrive at a warehouse. Molly demands that Nachman keep his part of the deal and let her go, but he has no intention of doing so. Instead, he locks her up in a cage along with Petula. As they check the loot, they discover there is a safe that can only be opened by scanning an eye. But before they can do anything, other thieves show up and attack Nachman. When one of them removes their mask, something unexpected is revealed. It's Nachman's own mother, who has actually been working with Craig all along. She takes control and tells Molly that she will now work for her. They force the girl to use her powers to bypass the security system and open the safe. Once they have the jewels, the woman orders them to lock up her own son along with Molly. Nachman, completely betrayed, can't believe it. At that moment, Molly realizes that Rocky has followed her. Together, they quickly come up with a plan to escape without the criminals noticing. Knowing that Molly can hypnotize even through reflections, Rocky finds a mirror and places it in front of the truck. This way, Molly manages to interfere with the security system. With the help of a pair of binoculars, she traps the criminals inside the vehicle. After freeing themselves, Molly also helps Nachman, convincing him to return the jewels. Then she calls the police anonymously, and shortly after, all the criminals are arrested. With everything resolved, Molly and Rocky return to the orphanage. Before parting ways, Molly asks Nachman what he will do now. He replies that he will leave his criminal life behind because he doesn't want to end up like his mother. Now he is alone with no family or friends. But then Molly and Rocky tell him something unexpected, that he can count on them. They even invite him to visit them at the orphanage whenever he wants. Then, after buying Christmas presents for all the children at the orphanage, Molly and Rocky take a bus back together with Petula. When they arrive, everyone welcomes them with great joy. They are finally back home. Shortly after, Miss Trinkleberry appears, and Molly is excited to learn that she has been discharged from the hospital. When they meet, the woman gives her another piece of great news. Mrs. Adderstone has lost her position as headmistress and will be leaving that very day. Molly decides to go say goodbye. But when she enters the office, she realizes that Adderstone is no longer under her hypnosis. Even so, before leaving, the woman gives her some belongings she had kept since Molly first arrived at the orphanage. After that, Molly goes to the library to return the book. There, she meets Lucy, who reveals that she was actually the one who left the book in that hiding place. Also that Molly would find it. Molly thanks her from the bottom of her heart, leaves the book, and returns to the orphanage. That night, at last, she celebrates Christmas Eve together with Miss Trinkleberry and all her friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about this movie.